As our New Jersey network coverage of Inaugural 90, I'm a decade behind here, Inaugural 90 continues today. We're going to join Sandy King, who is along the parade route as the people gather to see the parade, which will be led by the new governor of the state. And Sandy, I can sort of see behind you that there are people gathering today, and thousands are expected along the parade route along State Street.
Exactly, and they are starting to come out here in big numbers now. So far, though, it's pretty quiet here, so before we get to the excitement of the parade, let's talk a little bit more about that inaugural address. And here to do that with me is friend and longtime political observer Rick Sindig of New Jersey Reporter magazine. Rick, Michael Aaron asked, was it inspirational? Was it?
Yeah, I think in many ways it was, Sandy. I share Michael's belief that it was short on specifics and long on generalities, but I think that those generalities were designed to be inspirational. New ideas, old ideals. I think what he was trying to do, as most governors do in an inaugural address, was to set the tone for what he would like his administration to do, and I think in large measure he accomplished that.
Do you know, I think I share some of Michael's frustration in that it seemed to be a little soft. Well, I was expecting, I guess, something that had a little more bite to it.
I think you'll get that bite in the first State of the State message. You may get some of that bite in the budget message that's going to come up in about a month or so. But traditionally, inaugural addresses, at least the last several governors, have used the occasion of the inaugural to set broad policy objectives instead of talking about specifics. In fact, I think that the reference to auto insurance in this one was really more the exception than the rule for an inaugural address. Certainly both Governors Kane and Byrne used the occasion of their inaugural addresses to talk in very broad terms about what they hope to accomplish. And I think that Jim Florio learned his lesson from those two and took his cues from them.
It obviously was a very well-delivered speech. He seemed very much in command of his material. But what about the auto insurance question? Did he just feel that that is so much on the minds of New Jerseyans that he had no choice but to address it?
I think so. I'd like to address the question of how comfortable he felt as well, because those of us who have known Jim Florio for a long time know that he is not especially comfortable with a prepared speech, nor is he particularly comfortable with this newfangled teleprompter, that glass thing that you see on both sides of the podium. He handled it, I thought, extremely well for somebody doing it for the first time.
I thought he looked as comfortable as I've seen him since before this campaign began.
And this is the first time he has ever used that teleprompter, that kind of teleprompter, so I think he handled it quite well for a novice. As to the auto insurance question, I think it became the predominant issue in a campaign that was otherwise pretty much devoid of issues, and I think he felt that he had to hit the ground running on that one.
You said that he was setting broad themes. These notions of family and community, do they mean anything? Are they really themes, or are they just an attempt to make folks feel good? And is that, in fact, maybe that's what today should be about? That's what this parade certainly will be.
Well, sure. And I think it's a combination of the two. I mean, I think it's especially important for somebody who has established a reputation as a liberal Democrat to come along and talk about the need for family values, for community, for a sense of the betterment of all, a little bit of sacrifice.
An attempt then to take back some of what the Republicans may have taken as their own, the traditional American values?
Well, I share with Michael the belief that there were some implicit criticisms of Tom Kean in the speech, and that the softening up of the early part of the speech was designed to do exactly that. I think it was an attempt to sort of say, listen, we're not making a dramatic shift from a Republican governor to a Democratic one, but there are going to be some perceptible changes in terms of style. Still, our overall objectives, family, prosperity, a sense of community, these are things that Americans have shared for 200 years, and they'll continue to share, and I'm going to carry on that tradition. I think that's the message he was trying to get across.
One difference, though, may be this question of opportunity, which is something that those who've spoken of traditional values haven't always talked about. This was a theme that was very much in the Florio campaign, that we cannot leave a segment of the population behind. We heard it again. What about the specifics he's going to need to make that promise into some kind of reality?
are moving from someone who is the child of the Mayflower to someone who is the child of immigrants. And the whole notion of opportunity, of ability to make opportunity for people of limited means or for people who were not born of privilege, is something that is obviously very, very important to Jim Florio. And it's something that he's going to work on. Clearly, it has driven him throughout his 15 years in Congress and will continue to drive him, it seems to me, as governor. How he makes good on those promises, it seems to me, depends largely upon how the economy goes. If the economy goes reasonably well, then those new ideas for old ideals can be something. I was struck by a couple of very pointed references to the need to forge one New Jersey out of what is presently two New Jerseys, and to provide opportunities for people who have traditionally been left behind by the social and economic advantages that have come to New Jersey in the last several years. I think that struck a very responsive chord in a lot of people in that audience, and I know as I looked around among the legislators, I saw some, I wouldn't call them smug smiles, but I would call them very appreciative smiles on the faces of some urban legislators.
Who think that this time they're going to get more than promises, you think?
Well, I think there's a sense that with a Democratic legislature in both houses, with urban leaders in both houses, John Lynch, who is also the mayor of New Brunswick, as the president of the Senate, and Joe Doria from Bayonne as the Assembly Speaker, and Jim Florio, who comes from an urban background, that the ground work of support is there to actually do something that's going to help out New Jersey's inner cities. And I think that Brendan Byrne talked about it 12 years ago now as New Jersey's remaining frontier, and I don't think a whole lot has changed in those 12 years. So I think that the people representing urban areas had to be very much inspired by what Florio had to say.
Rick, let me bring our studio back to this. Ken, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Sandy, and we have a question for Rick here. You mentioned, Rick, the change in style from one administration to the next, and we've heard some talk about that. What would you anticipate to see a change in style from Tom Kean to Jim Florio?
Well, I think there are a number of changes that we can anticipate. One certainly is that Jim Florio is, I mean, he is still, despite changes over the last several years, a D's, dem, and do's politician. This is a guy who grew up in the hardball world of urban politics. His style is hands-on. His style is managerial. He likes to know every piece of every issue before he gets to it. I think Tom Kean much preferred to deal in broader general themes and allow his staff to do more of what we would call the dirty work. So I think in that respect, there's going to be a perceptible change in terms of hands-on management versus the more tentative sort of leadership by benign oversight that has happened during the Kean years.
Of course, Rick, as Jim Florio reminded us repeatedly throughout the campaign, he was a boxer. This was somebody who quite literally was used to scrapping and being hands-on in a very literal way.
Rick, and it shows up, excuse me, I just want to say it shows up in the way he was a congressman as well. I mean, this was a guy who rolled up his sleeves and dug down and wrote the Superfund law. And congressmen congressmen don't do that kind of thing unless they really get into the nuts and bolts of policy. I think that's what Jim Florio loves. I think he loves that a lot more than he loves running for office. And the next few months, I was going to say the next 4 years, but the next few months are going to tell us how successful he is at that.
Rick, you say you were struck by how much emphasis there was on making two New Jerseys into one New Jersey, and I would offer the observation that I can't remember a politician in recent years who's given a speech where he hasn't called on helping the poor and lifting up the poor and making us all one society. I was more struck by a line in which Florio said that the way to get there, the only time he alluded to how to get there was when he talked about the partnerships where business, labor, nonprofits, everyone with a stake in this state is required to work together as never before. I wonder if either you or Sandy picked that line out and heard him say is required to work together, as if he's going to start new programs that force people into partnerships that they might not be inclined to join.
the is required was either an ad lib or something that Florio added himself, because as I look at the text of the speech, it merely said that everyone with a stake in the state will work together as never before. He changed that to is required to. I don't know whether I'm going to read so much into that.
Behind that.
I'm sorry?
You need to wonder just how much muscle would be behind that question of being required. I mean,
Well, one wonders too, and I noticed that you were talking about how he had cut out the line, I believe in keeping my promises. I don't know whether that omission ends up meaning that he doesn't plan on keeping his promises. I would think not. I would hope not. And I'm not sure that I would read too much into the fact that he decided either at the spur of the moment or a few minutes before giving the speech that he was going to pull that line out.
Well, we've got months, as you say, and years to see whether he's going to keep those promises, but for now we're going to keep our promise and go back to the studio.
All right, Sandy and Rick, thank you, and we'll be rejoining Sandy King along the parade route as the afternoon continues. In the meantime, though, Larry Stupnagle, who was inside the War Memorial Building, is now outside the War Memorial Building, and he's sampling reaction to the new governor's address today. Larry?
Well, Kent, I think the first reaction we're going to get from the governor's inaugural address will not be an unbiased one. Louis Katz has known Jim Florio for about 20 years now. He's the co-chairman of the inaugural event. He's also been a close friend, a political confidant, and a fundraiser. So what did you think of this, Mr. Katz?
Well, I think you're right. It's not terribly objective, but it was clearly the finest inaugural that I've ever been to. And obviously, we all take great pride in Jim's wonderful accomplishments and the beautiful day that he's celebrating with his family and his wife, Lucinda. It was magnificent. The speech was wonderful. It touched on all of the issues that he talked about in the campaign. And in a sense, it gave New Jerseyans the opportunity to get a firsthand close-up look as Jim Florio, the governor. A humble man, a hardworking, dedicated public servant, somebody that's going to make a difference in his tenure here as governor over the next 4 and hopefully 8 years in New Jersey.
What do you think from your standpoint as somebody who's known the governor for 20 years now? How much Jim Florio was really in this speech and how much was the speechwriters? How close was the governor to the speech?
He was very close to the speech. I mean, I think that you can get all the fine speechwriters in the world, but nobody can make you feel the way he feels about people. And when he talked about meeting people in Newark and in Trenton and in diners and on the campaign trail, that was his personal experience. He genuinely understands the need of the people, and he understands the needs of the people that are suffering in this state. I think that part of his campaign, more than any other, stood out in this speech. That is the need to make one New Jersey and to bring people of all classes closer together so that the word opportunity has true meaning to those who have been bypassed in the process. So it was Jim Florio from the heart and from the soul.
When, in the days and weeks to come now, what role will you be playing in the governor's administration? You won't have a formal role, but in terms of your personal involvement, what sort of relationship are you going to have?
I'd like to be a friend. I'd like to try to replace Michael Aaron on New Jersey News. If that doesn't happen, then I just as soon stay friendly with everybody. Hopefully I'll be able to assist if they ask me to do any particular task. Maybe I'll be involved in some fundraising activities. They don't usually ask me to do political advice. I tell some jokes. I just want to be the same friend I've been over the years and just wish him as well as I could.
All right, Louis Katz, thank you for joining us here. We'll go back to the studio to Kent and Michael. And Michael, you might watch out for this guy.
Hope you have a few jokes up your sleeve, Michael.
Tell Louis Katz there's not room enough on this set for the 3 of us.
All right. New Jersey has its new 49th governor, James J. Florio, and New Jersey Network is going to take a break in our coverage of Inaugural 90. We'll be right back. Welcome back to New Jersey Network's coverage of Inaugural 90. The 49th governor of the state of New Jersey has just taken the official oath of office, James J. Florio. I'm Kent Manahan. I'm here in our Trenton studio with senior political correspondent Michael Aaron. And Michael, the governor has not chosen all of his cabinet members yet. Two members of the cabinet, 2 other people sworn in today, a little later on this afternoon at the State House, the Attorney General and the new Secretary of State. But some other members of the cabinet have not yet been chosen.
Kent, Florio has chosen only 7 of 19 cabinet officers in the 2.5 months since Election Day, and there's an irony there. This is the man who promises hands-on government, and this is the man whose political campaign was a machine that mowed down the opposition and worked like a well-oiled machine. It strikes me as strange that in 2.5 months he's only filled a third of his cabinet. I can't explain it. At one point he explained that the budget problem was slowing them down. At another point he was quoted as saying that the quality of the people he selects is more important than the speed with which he selects them. Nonetheless, you can't help but raise questions about them getting off to a slow start. Maybe they're too busy concentrating on their auto insurance package, which they're going to unveil in a few days.
Or maybe this is just a very cautious Jim Florio, the same Jim Florio we've known for many, many years here in New Jersey as we've followed his political career. Well, thousands of people are gathering along State Street in Trenton for the inaugural parade, and that's where Sandy King is standing by to begin our coverage of the parade just as soon as that gets underway. Sandy.
Kent, the parade is just about to begin in earnest, as you can probably tell by the loudspeakers that are now blaring. But of course, neither the parade nor the inauguration today were the beginning of the events that have been going on for days leading up to today. We had events designed to echo the themes Florio's tried to stress throughout his campaign: action, strength, compassion. On Saturday, the Florios hosted a children's inauguration, fittingly at his alma mater, Trenton State College. And as Marie DeNoia tells us, the governor-elect was campaigning again that day, appealing this time to hundreds of young voters-to-be.
All right, now let's do it. Everybody on. Baila bamba. Come on, to me. Baila bamba.
The new governor called it the first children's inaugural in state history, suggesting the birth of a new tradition, one filled with music and color and laughter and light. And then the new governor of New Jersey promised them the world.
I, James J. Florio.
I, James J. Florio.
Promise to work hard.
Promise to work hard.
So that every boy and girl.
So that every boy and girl.
Has the best chance to learn and grow.
Has the best chance to learn and grow.
I promise to keep our water pure.
I promise to keep our water pure.
And our air fresh.
And our air fresh.
And the children believed him.
I think he's going to do a real nice job.
And why do you think so?
Because he did all this for us to show that he will.
He's wonderful. He's great. I know, because he's great. He has children inaugural and we get to come.
I promise to be a governor.
I promise to be a governor.
Who makes sure every child.
Who makes sure that every child.
Lives up to his or her boldest dreams.
Lives up to his or her boldest dreams.
And doesn't get trapped.
And doesn't get trapped.
In the nightmare of drugs.
In the nightmare of drugs.
I hope he follows through with what he said he would do, because, I mean, it would mean a lot to the kids in New Jersey, really.
I promise to be a governor.
I promise to be a governor.
Who builds a good future.
Who builds a good future.
For all the children of the state.
For all the children of the state.
No matter where they live.
No matter where they live.
Or who they are.
Or who they are.
He looks like a very good person by the way he speaks, by the way he just acts, but what he promised.
It's interesting that the children are as well informed as anyone else. When they talked about wanting good water and clean air and good schools, that's just wisdom that hopefully will extend to the adult population as well as to the children.
The Florios sat among the 500 children, a class from each of the state's 21 counties, and watched and sang and laughed. Florio, the man who likened his battle to win the election to a prize fight in the boxing ring, seemed at ease in the midst of the clamor of kids. It was Lucinda Florio, a former third-grade teacher, who inspired this inauguration.
And as a teacher, I am so glad to see so many elementary students who made it to college. You must be the brightest and the best from your counties. Is that true? I thought so.
But beyond giving the kids a chance to give their approval of him, Florio gave the children an insight to him, confiding that he is nervous about his new responsibilities, but excited about the changes he's promised will come.
As the years go by, many of you may not remember all of what took place here today. May not remember every single thing that occurred, because there'll be lots that will happen to you, and that's understandable. But I hope if there's anything that you can remember about today, 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's that we all especially wanted to emphasize the need to help other people.
And Florio gave the children an open invitation to tell him or ask him anything, and he gave them his State House address, clearly an effort to inspire a lasting friendship. For New Jersey Network, I'm Marie DeNoia.
Saw Jim Florio walking past, a very happy Jim Florio, with Lucinda and with the special small kids in his life, Matthew and Chelsea. We heard a lot about them during the campaign. Here they were along the line of march. As you can hear, things have gotten going here. We've got the drums beating and we've got the horns playing. And it is, I guess, all that it was cracked up to be. As Rick Sindig just said to me a short while ago, if nothing else, we've got the best seats in the house. But Scott Moniak's a little closer to the action. Scott, where are you?
Well, Sandy, the drums that you were hearing were coming from the Camden High School Marching Panthers, and they're just making their way down State Street right now. I was listening to the reaction from everybody so far about Florio's speech. The people here on the street certainly were coming out of that building with great expressions and joy on their faces. They seem to have got a whole refreshed spirit, a rejuvenated spirit, a spirit that is shared by Mercer County Freeholder Joe Uhas, who, as your city councilman for Trenton, your responsibilities included helping to organize this entire event.
Well, the people of the city of Trenton and government, as well as the people, played a large role in organizing the parade. Not only governmentally, as you can see, our public safety personnel are covering the street, but the city employees in general, and also the people of the city of Trenton. In fact, many people who organize our St. Patrick's Day parade and other events played a role in organizing today's event.
How does it feel to bring back the parade after so many years?
Oh, it's great. It's really great, because as Jim Florio said, he's coming home, and it's just terrific that we've been able to play a part in it.
Are you surprised at all? I know that we had expected maybe up to 10,000 people here to take part. I think we could surpass that number, and the people who are here seem to be having a wonderful time.
No question about it. Of course, this is the capital city, and those people that play a key role in state government as employees or as those who deal with state government are pretty much covering the street, but also the people of Mercer County and the people throughout the state who have come down to our city and our county by the busload to be a part of this historic event.
And on the personal level, as a Democrat who admitted to me that you might have gotten into office this time on the coattails of the Democratic enthusiasm in the state, how do you feel right now?
I feel great. I've been on the job as a Mercer County Freeholder now about 2 weeks, and there's no question that the tremendous victory of our governor, Jim Florio, and the Democratic Party throughout the state played a key role. And I'm looking forward as a freeholder to working in cooperation with state government. And as the governor pointed out in his inaugural address, cooperation is going to be a very key theme of his administration.
Okay, Joe, I appreciate you talking with us very much. As we're getting blasted away here with the sounds of the marching band, we can maybe take a vantage point from a different camera view to be able to see some of the other things that are coming up State Street. And on that note, I will throw it back to Sandy King. Sandy?
Well, Scott, we're getting a look now at what everybody came here to see, and that's Jim Florio climbing up on the reviewing stand, shaking hands. This is his day, and he's doing it exactly the way that he wanted to do. Rick Sindig is still here with me. You know, you've got to wonder why, after 55 or 58 years, did the Democrats this year decide to revive this tradition? Of course, he talked about old-fashioned values in the inaugural address, and here we see an old-fashioned political parade.
Well, I suspect that it may have something to do with the fact that we have unseasonably beautiful weather today. More often than not, sometime between the 15th and 21st of January is going to be cold, rainy, snowy, or even worse. And today, Jim and Lucinda could not have ordered a more picture-perfect day for their inaugural.
In fact, it was risky business, I thought, to schedule a parade. And although nobody seems to be quite sure why these parades were abandoned in the first place. Of course, they were abandoned in the midst of the Depression. That may have had something to do with it, but they never were revived. And I can't help but wondering if maybe one of the reasons was that, in the middle of January, maybe you don't want to take the chance.
Yeah, although, of course, they've done this at the federal level in January every 4 years for as far back as anybody can remember. I suspect it was just something that fell into disuse or disrepair. You should also realize that inaugurals themselves, inaugural addresses, did not really come into vogue until after the 1947 Constitution, when the governor was popularly elected, could replace himself for a second term. Up until then, governors sometimes gave inaugural addresses, sometimes didn't. Sometimes they were simply sworn in. And of course, I suspect that more than a little bit to do with this mob scene that we see out here on State Street today has to do with the presence of a great many members of the media.
Television has changed politics.
Oh, it surely has. It's made inaugural addresses shorter, and it's made inauguration ceremonies much, much longer and much showier.
Well, and of course the big difference, just as we've noted before when it comes to campaigning, the big difference is that now everyone knows what's said in an inaugural address, not just the few who get to read the copy after it's done.
That's very true, and I think that too has a lot to do with the fact that inaugural addresses of the last three governors have lasted on an average about 15 or 20 minutes, compared to Harold Hoffman's inaugural address, for example, that was 59 pages long.
Speaking of one of those three, we just saw Jim Florio saying hello to Bill Cahill. We've seen him out here. We've seen Brendan Byrne. I understand that Dick Hughes is on his way here as well. It doesn't seem to matter on occasions like this what party you're from. There is a real camaraderie among these former and current governors.
Well, I think that traditionally there has been a very good relationship that's existed between the present governor and the former governors, regardless of party. One of the things I think that the relative ease of the transition from the Kane to the Florio administration proved was that even if there has been rumor of widespread personal antipathy between the two candidates, that they overcome that.
As a matter of fact, we are real close to having our friend Governor Hughes with us right now. Rick, I'm going to ask you to hand over your seat. And
I will do so with great happiness. Hello, Governor.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. The warmth that you can just sense here is very, very helpful to Lucinda and I as we start on a long trek that we're looking forward to. Thank you. Thank you. Like the parade? What's the name of the guy there?
all of this when you were inaugurated?
No, we didn't have a parade.
Why?
Except that we went from here down the street to that war memorial, and on the way I saw a little nephew of mine who was paralyzed. He's been sick all week. Poor little sick kid was along the side, so I stopped, went over and kissed him, put my high hat on his head. Great fun.
Well, of course, you had the high hat, but you didn't have the parade. Why not?
When Cahill was inaugurated, he wore a regular hat, so we all had a change too.
But why no parade for you?
I love a parade.
But you didn't have one for yours. Why not?
Well, I never occurred to us. And also, I shook hands with about 3,000 people inside my office at a reception. And somebody brought me some hazel stuff to rub on my hands, and they're still bruised.
How surprised were you when you heard that Jim Florio was going to revive this practice that ended in the early 30s of having this parade out here today?
Well, he is going to be a great governor, in my opinion. I was very pleased with his inauguration speech. My daughter back here, Honey, and I agreed that it was better than any speech we ever heard, including mine when I was inaugurated.
Better than your speeches?
Yes, it was.
Oh, come on.
Its theme was so simple and so wonderful and so true that we have to get back the old values. In this country, we've lost our way somehow. As Ralph Nader said yesterday, we're spending ourselves crazy, running into debt, just like the country is. We've got to settle down, work hard, save. I love this talk.
You were happy with what he had to say. What do you think it says about what this administration will be like?
I think it'll be a great success. This man has a lot of courage, and he's a can-do man, and he's a tireless worker. And he's going to demand that of everybody that works in his administration. And he's proved it already by his great appointment for the Attorney General, Bob Del Tufo, the best in the state that he could find, and by all the people around him, by Judge Steve Persky, who quit the bench in order to be his chief of staff to run his part of his campaign. These are great people, and great people make a great administration.
By the way, we're taking a look now at the, I think we've got the Camden Marching Band, and they've certainly got a lot of energy today. I think even if it had been cold, they would have been warm out here, but we're lucky that it was such a beautiful day. And they are resplendent in their purple and gold, aren't they?
They are beautiful.
Does it make you sorry, Governor, that you didn't do this when you were...
Yeah, I think we should have done it.
Should have done it.
Let the people see. It's a way to involve the people, and that's what Florio wants to do.
So do you think that was the idea? I mean, we've been asking all day, why was it abandoned in the 30s, and why has Governor Florio brought it back now?
I guess it was probably abandoned because that was in the middle of the Depression, 1935.
Right.
And the people couldn't afford it. Come here from all parts of the state, it was a little beyond reach. But we nevertheless had a pretty good time. And the inauguration was great. There was a little slip up. The Secretary of State at that time handed me the Great Seal, and he called it the Great Steal. And I cautioned Jane Bergio not to make the same mistake, and she didn't. She was very careful.
Let's listen in on this a little while. This is marvelous stuff.
Tell me when you want me to show.
They were marvelous. There are 99 members of that group, Governor. And I want you to know that they're just back from London, where they played for the Queen at the Westminster Parade on New Year's Day. Now they're playing for our governor, and particularly for their governor, of course. These kids are from Camden, and so is Jim Florio.
They're great.
Now, I understand that most of the groups that come through here won't get to stop and play for the governor in quite this way, but obviously he had a specially weak spot for the Camden kids, and they certainly did their thing.
Are those kids from Camden?
Yeah.
Good. They're
So
great.
there's a special relationship there.
Sure. They're working hard, aren't they?
Okay,
Joining
Scott,
me now
go.
in front of this very loud parade is the parade director himself, David Del Vecchio. What an amazing accomplishment to be able to pull this thing off. People are enjoying themselves, seems to be working smoothly.
Absolutely. Well, we caught a good break with the weather, and with the help of about 30, 40 volunteers who work at least a month almost on a full-time basis with the help of the city of Trenton, which cooperated with the Police and Public Works Department, and the help of the state police, the sheriff's office. We were able to put on, I think, a tremendous event.
People might be surprised in terms of the logistical nightmare in terms of approaching an event like this. You've been thinking about it for how many months now, probably?
Well, we spent about 2 months putting it together. Right after the election, we sat down and we wanted to do an event that everyone could participate in, everyone can come and enjoy themselves, and as you can see, we caught a break with the weather, and I think everyone's here having a good time.
What's different about this parade compared to any other is that you've got so much patriotism involved here. How much of the theme, how important was that in the theme?
Well, I think what was important was that we tried to get a cross-section of the state, or at least representatives of the cross-section. As you can see right here, we have working people walking by. We had the Camden High School band. We're going to have ethnic groups. We're going to have arts groups, and we tried to get a cross-section of the state to share in this day.
The Atlantic City High School band marching right behind us as we go. A lot of people probably wanted to be in this. Did you have to tell some people they just couldn't fit?
Well, we
limited space, I would think.
Absolutely. What we tried to do is particularly with bands, is get a cross section. We tried to get a fife and drum, a drum and bugle corps. Let me see, an army band. We got high school bands. We tried to accommodate a broad range of interests.
Well, congratulations on a job well done, David. You pulled this one off. I know it's a lot of work. And everybody here seems to be enjoying it, as behind us seems Governor Florio has been having a big smile on his face during the entire procession. I will now throw it back to Sandy King. Sandy?
Okay, Scott, I think you threw it back to me, although with the sound of this band going, it's hard to tell. This is the Atlantic City High School Viking Marching Band. They are the host band for the Miss America Parade, and last year the Vikings won first place in the All-American Music Festival in Orlando. They were the best marching band and the best jazz band. At this moment, they're the loudest band, but they sound pretty good. You see coming down the street now, the Order of the Sons of Italy in America, the first of the ethnic groups to appear in the parade today, and with some good reason. This is a big day for Italian Americans. The first governor in New Jersey of Italian American extraction. We're going to say goodbye to Governor Hughes. Thank you so much. So glad you were here. We've have just said goodbye to Governor Dick Hughes. This was an emotional day for him, you know. It brought back memories of his own inauguration, and it, as a good Democrat, it gave him a glow to know that not only was there a Democrat in what used to be his old office, but Democrats running both houses of the legislature. He has great hopes for Jim Florio, as he told us today.
Organizes the annual Irish Festival at the Garden State Arts Center each year. The 1990 will mark the 20th anniversary.
Hey, we are covering all of this live here on New Jersey Network. We're going to break and we'll be right back.
They will be dressed in the traditional Irish costume. The Essex County Police and Fire Emerald Society Pipe Band.
Hey!
11 drummers and a drum major. Joe Carney is the band master. Don Gil Martin is the drum major. Jack McGarry is the pipe band.
Say again. Say again.
We are back here at the parade. We now have a Puerto Rican youth group coming through, and we've seen this as a day of ethnic celebration here in New Jersey. We saw an Italian group come through first, then we saw an Irish group. Now we've got some Puerto Rican kids, and there's lots to come. Tom, with me now, by the way, is Tom O'Neill, longtime political observer, who has some insights as to why this may have stopped 55 or 58 years ago and why we may have it back today.
Well, the last governor who did this, Sandy, was Harold Hoffman, who was also, of course, our only governor ever to be indicted after leaving office.
Well, maybe that's why nobody wanted to keep the practice going.
To give you an idea about how things were back then, while he was a congressman, he served simultaneously as commissioner of motor vehicles. The only reason I can think that they stopped having the parades is that with the onset of the war, that the tradition simply was dropped. And I think that what this bringing this tradition back says is that this is a governor and an administration that's proud of being in government and wants to bring that pride to government in New Jersey in the same sort of way that Tom Kaine stressed pride in the state.
By the way, speaking of pride, we've got the Hoboken High School marching band here. Jim Florio's got a special place in his heart for Hoboken. We're going to see that they get the chance to even stop and perform for the governor a little bit. We see here that this was, did you get a chance to read that, Tom? They said it was birthplace of Frank Sinatra, and I can't read the rest of it, but the Florio story was the last item on there. The Florio story. We'll get a better look at it as they come through.
Birthplace of baseball is what they're saying.
Yes, and Sinatra.
And
Sinatra's
Sinatra.
second, and that's an interesting thing. They say Hoboken, birthplace of baseball, Sinatra, Michael Chang, that's big news this year, and the Florio story.
Of course, Hoboken is jealous of this birthplace of baseball at the Elysian Fields, since New York is now trying to steal credit for
Well, and that fight will go on a long time, I think, and not likely to end before the statue's turned around facing us, and we know that's not likely to happen. Another one of those New York-New Jersey fights is likely to go on forever. One of the things, by the way, that Jim Florio is going to have to handle is this ongoing rivalry with New York. I mean, in a serious way. It's nice to say I'm from Brooklyn, I've got roots there, but he's going to find out that it gets a little tougher.
There's some very tough interstate issues coming up, Sandy. Questions about air pollution control, about new traffic crossings for the Hudson, and the whole question of the Port Authority toll increase.
Oh, yes.
Are all landing squarely on the governor's desk. And when he comes into work tomorrow, that interstate relation issue is going to be a big question.
Another ethnic group coming through. We see the Polish Americans now. There obviously was a real effort made, Tom, to include all of New Jersey's ethnic diversity.
Well, of course, you don't have to try real hard to hit a bunch of ethnic groups in New Jersey.
No, you don't.
You know, you drop a brick on any crowd, and you will hit 10 or 12 different ethnic groups.
And yet we've not had too many of those ethnic groups represented in our governor's office.
Well,
this is a change.
It's hard to believe that the first Roman Catholic governor was sitting in this chair just a few minutes ago, Dick Hughes. That was the first time New Jersey had a Roman Catholic governor.
You know, it's interesting, he said, Dick Hughes, that his theory was that the reason the parades were abandoned back in the 30s were because of the Depression. And I said, well, why didn't you revive it? And he said, I should have. I'm sorry I didn't. He was really excited by what was happening here today. And obviously, so is much of the city of Trenton, and I don't know how many other places in New Jersey. This place is packed.
Well, it's a good sight to see, because on the normal legislative day in this city, Sandy, as you know, you can often cross State Street without bothering to look at traffic in either direction. Unlike many state capitals, such as Annapolis or Hartford or Albany, this is not a place that's tremendously busy. And the growth that's happened here in the last 8 years may begin to make a change in that, and this may be symbolic of that change.
Well, today you certainly wouldn't know that there's ever any quiet here. This is really quite exciting, and as Rick pointed out earlier, we do have the best seat in the House, but Scott Moniak is down there on the sidelines with a different view. Scott, what do you see from where you are?
Well, Sandy, the expression on Governor Florio's face says it all. The man is so happy, proud, and delighted right now. He's joined by his entire family. He's asked that we don't try to do any kind of interview with him while the parade is going on, so that he can obviously watch the entire parade and not be distracted. But a man who doesn't mind our distraction whatsoever is John Maurer, Gloucester County freeholder. John, what is your reaction to this parade so far?
Scott, we're very excited. This is one of the greatest things in Trenton in about 30 or 40 years. It's great to have a governor that we know on a first-name basis, and we're really excited about having Jim Florio, a guy who we've sat down at the kitchen table with and talked about politics and talked about state problems when he was a congressman. Now he's our governor, and we're looking for some problems to be solved, and a new day and a great day for New Jersey.
And we're sure beating the drum, bringing him into office, bringing the parade back.
We're beating the drum, and there's a great marching bands, and we have a local band here from Gloucester County, St. Michael's Band, and it's a lot of fun. It's an exciting day.
You're feeling that your part of the state probably is going to be maybe better represented now, you were saying?
I think so. I think that South Jersey oftentimes felt that we were left out of the shuffle. Jim knows our problems. He knows our section of the state. He knows our people, and we're excited about that.
Let's take one more look at Governor Florio up on the pedestal right now. How does it feel to be able to see him standing there so proud?
Well, he's got a lovely wife, and he's our new governor, and I'm proud of him, and the whole state's proud of Jim Florio.
And like I said before, the expression on his face just shows how long he has waited for this and how much he is obviously enjoying it. Sandy, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Okay. Yes, and we see Lucinda looking particularly happy just then. She's got some beautiful flowers in her hands, and she's got one arm on her husband's. That's where it's been throughout this campaign. She's been an incredible asset to him, Tom, hasn't she?
She has been probably his most important asset, and I think it's interesting that the talk is clear that she's going to be a very active First Lady in New Jersey, taking a role on policy issues in a way unusual in this state since the days of Betty Hughes.
You know, you have to wonder the change for her, for Lucinda, from being in a classroom with little children to having this whole state as her classroom in a sense.
Well, I think if you can handle third graders, you can handle anybody, is what it amounts to. And she is a lady of remarkable poise.
Yes, she is. And we've certainly seen how she's handled Jim Florio, and I mean that in the very best sense. I mean, he has said throughout this campaign, if there's a new Jim Florio, it's because Lucinda's made him, and I think that that's true.
He has acted in an entirely different way. And he certainly seems to be enjoying this. You know, there's an old saying, Sandy, there are two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and the other is finally getting it. And listening to his message today at the War Memorial, he really sees the task in front of him as a struggle. And while he is smiling today, and I think rightfully proud of what he's accomplished, there is an element in his talk about how hard he's going to have to work in the days ahead. This is going to be a struggle for Jim Florio, and the new cheer that he brings to the task is going to be an important asset for him.
What else should we have read from that speech today? Were there some surprises for you?
Well, I think I was mostly surprised by the verbs that occurred most frequently in his talk. And I jotted some of them down. I was so taken with it. He talked about work and struggle and fight and hard work and carving out a future and shedding sweat, fighting hard for, and being disciplined and being tough. He really sees a challenge that he has accomplished. And while today is a day of the celebration, I think as he looks into tomorrow when he sits down behind that desk, he really sees a wrestling match with this state in front of him.
Of course, when you actually take the reins of government, you've got to go beyond talking about leadership and into specifics. We haven't seen yet how Jim Florio is going to manage that.
Well, he has talked a lot about being a hands-on governor. And if you look at the way he has organized the governor's office, there is a real element there of consolidating in the governor's office the control and direction over state government. And making the cabinet departments perform along to the same drummer. That is going to be a struggle. It's always a struggle. He's not been specific yet about his policies, even about the auto insurance. We're going to have a special session of the legislature a week from yesterday in which he will unveil that. But I think all you can be sure of is that he is going to work real hard, judging by what he has said, and that he is going to make it very clear where the decisions are made, and it's right under that gold dome to our right.
You know, part of what he had to do to be elected, and we were talking about how Lucinda helped him do it, was to show Jim Florio the human being, the real man. Is that part of what this display is about today?
Well, I think it's in part that's what it's about. I also think that Jim Florio is in many ways a traditional kind of democratic political leader.
Speaking of which, let me just point out, this is a group called the Children of Democracy. They're out of Hudson County, organized by the Hudson County Democratic Organization. Talk about old-fashioned kind of Hudson County politics. Let's get all the ethnic groups out, put them out in their national costume, get them to the polls. In this case, get them to the parade.
Well, Sandy, I don't know if you've ever attended the St. Patrick's Day parade in Jersey City.
Quite an event.
But there are fewer Irishmen than there are any other ethnic group in the St. Patrick's Day parade in Jersey City.
Quite similar to the Columbus Day parade in my neighborhood in Newark, which is no longer an Italian event, as you know.
Yes.
But these kids look marvelous.
What have we got there? We've got the Indians.
Yeah.
A Korean contingent. Mexican Americans. Puerto Ricans.
And they're almost all in sync, too.
Yes.
Jim Florio's looking on at them now. And Scott Moniak has been looking, too. Scott, what's down there where you are?
Well, Sandy, we were just talking about these beautifully decorated young children. As I was standing here, I was trying to get the attention of one of them. Their concentration was just intense. Their minds and their eyes were just fixed on their leader. They were prepared. You can tell that most everybody taking part in this parade today has been preparing for many, many weeks or months, trying to make sure that this is the one parade that will not only bring it back to be a permanent institution once again, hopefully, but to be able to make this occasion today something that they'll forever remember and being a part of New Jersey politics. I think we're all getting a sense of that today, that not only is this just a parade that's going to be starting once again the ceremony, the pageantry, to be able to bring back the governor into office when you welcome him in with marching bands, but to know that this is a part of history, and everybody who's assembled on the street today, everybody like we're taking a look now at the St. Michael's Band from Gibbstown, New Jersey, they're all a part of history, and I think it's a proud feeling from the people who consider New Jersey home and have been lifelong citizens and are just glad that they're able to take part in an event like this, because we're all having a lot of fun. Sandy, let me throw it back to you.
Yeah, it is fun, and right now we've got a group that we're going to see in a minute. I can just see their blue banner. Well, first we've got a band. Obviously, these are not the New Breeds drill team from Trenton. But just behind them, that's the St. Michael's Club Band. And just behind them, you're going to see a group called the New Breeds Drill Team. These are junior and senior high school girls from the Trenton area. They won first place in the 1988 Trenton St. Patrick's Day Parade. And maybe most important, they're about community and service to the community. They're sponsored by the Mercer Street Friends Center and the Grace Baptist Church. You're going to see them in a minute. It's sort of a nice thing to have the St. Michael's Club band followed by these kids from the streets of Trenton. And you're going to see a different style. Once you see these guys carted past, you're going to see these little girls in their blue and white, and they are active and moving. And there they are. The New Breeds Drill Team from Trenton. Some little girls who know how to get things cooking out here. And I've got somebody with me who knows all about these kinds of events. Although I think that generally in Washington things are a little more staid than they are in Trenton today. With me is Senator Frank Lautenberg. And what do you think about all this?
I think it's exciting. I'll tell you something, Sandy. I was asked by someone about whether I thought this was too much ceremony. And I've got to tell you this. The Jim Florio's message, Jim Florio's campaign, was, I think, a people's campaign. And I think it was a people's election and a people's inauguration. If you listen to his comments, you could see that. And it's so appropriate to have a parade where people are participating. Often they're left out when we have something like this, an important ceremony, because it just doesn't reach them. Here's a good way, I think, to include lots of people.
I wonder, though, Senator, if there isn't a little bit of risk, if there aren't those naysayers, obviously not out here today, but if there aren't those naysayers who right now are saying, oh, Jim Florio is making too much of this, it's too much self-aggrandizement and ill-advised.
Well, I would challenge him on that. He was elected overwhelmingly by the people of New Jersey. They said, Jim Florio, we want you to govern this state of ours for the next 4 years. And I think it's quite okay. It's, after all, it's not the fancy ball that we're talking about. It's not a very costly thing in terms of the occasion. And I think it's quite nice, quite appropriate, good fun. You see the various groups representing different communities, different organizations.
Like these kids from Trenton.
Yeah, they're terrific. I see that. I would tell you that I ought to join them because I think the exercise would be very good for me.
I don't think these little girls have to worry about gaining weight. But you know, everybody has an inaugural ball. You talked about a fancy dress ball. Everybody has a fancy dress ball. Jim Florio will have one tonight.
Sure.
But no governor in the lifetimes of most people in New Jersey, no governor has had one of these before. I think it had to be a big jump to say, you know, we're going to revive something that's been dead for 55 or 58 years.
Yeah, but I think, once again, if you look at the base from whence Jim Florio comes, like I did, a working class family, part of the community spirit, the community program that he addressed in his inaugural speech, I think, includes participation, and that's what we're seeing. You didn't have to be a big giver to march in today's parade. You didn't have to be a fat cat to be recognized as part of the celebration. I think it's a very positive thing. I feel good about it. And those who would cast gloom on it, well, maybe they're gloomy about lots of things, but I think this is an appropriate thing.
As you say, many of the themes that you've stressed for years about your own background, the immigrant background, the working class background, are the same ones we heard from Jim Florio.
Absolutely.
They seem to have struck a real respondent chord in New Jersey, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. You know why? And I see it in my own legislative program, if I might, for a minute. When I wrote the bill that raised the drinking age to 21, it saved 100 kids a month from dying on the highways. People understand that. The bill that's going into place next month to stop smoking in airplanes. People feel those things. They're very basic. Those are the things that people appreciate, things that affect their everyday life, their hopes for tomorrow. That's the kind of theme I think that people do respond to.
I had wondered how many people would actually turn out for this, you know. I mean, we knew about all the thousands who'd be marching, but sometimes you get a parade. I have covered many in my career, and the people along the line of march simply aren't there, and yet they are here today.
Yep, they're here today, and you know, Sandy, you've watched government in this state of ours for some time, and we miss someone this day, a man named Arthur Holland, who was mayor of this city, who believes so much in the community and worked so hard. And I think it's a fitting tribute to his memory that Trenton has this kind of celebration, this kind of reliving things. And Jim Florio's attention to it, I think, is very, very positive.
It plays also to the theme that the governor stressed in his address today. He talked about rebuilding cities and reclaiming lives. That's a hard order to fill, though, isn't it?
Very tough. He set out a huge agenda to try to meet, and we all wish him well, and I want to work with him on it, but when you talk about environment and community and security and jobs, those are the fundamental things that affects each and every one of us. Car insurance. I mean, he wants to get after the things that touch people's lives. And it is a big agenda, but we're a complicated state, a complicated society. More ethnicities in New Jersey than any state in the country. 7.5 million people, most densely populated. It takes masterful leadership and participation by everybody to get the job done. And I think that's what he was talking about. I need you. He said it many times.
Of course, he talked about the traditional values. He talked about old-fashioned approach, and yet we're talking about newfangled problems. I mean, auto insurance simply wasn't a problem in the days when these parades were held. Drugs were not a problem.
Right.
Security was not the same kind of problem. Education was a different kind of problem. He's got very much 1990s problems to attack.
Certainly has. He has the same problems to attack that George Bush does in Washington. And forgive any partisan reference, but I'm a Democrat, and I think that Jim Florio represents democratic principles. That's small d, which fit our party's traditional image. It's just that life has gotten more complicated. We're in the technological era. You know, I grew up in that industry of technology, computers, and things move at a much more rapid pace. The job is more complicated. So yes, there are new problems, difficult problems. I mean, when you have the most densely populated state in the Union, crowded highways with lots of vehicles there are going to be lots of bumps and scrapes.
Let me ask you to put on your partisan hat for a minute, though, and talk large D. Jim Florio's got a wonderful opportunity here. He's got both houses of the legislature. He's got a big win behind him.
You know why I'm laughing, Sandy, is because I wonder sometimes down deep in one's heart, one doesn't wish that he had some opposition, because that removes some of the blame when he has the two houses with him.
If it doesn't work, he will be blamed.
It's his ball game. It's the buck stops there. So he has a very tough job. George Bush has a tough job because of what's happened with our revenue stream, with the program demands. So they're going to share kind of similar problems, and we hope that they'll solve them because we want them to be successful, whether it's a Democrat or Republican places of high office.
Well, it's what he wanted, it's what he asked for, and now we're going to ask Scott Moniak to pick it up from the street.
Okay, Sandy, joining me right now is Les Samuel, president of the Black Administration Network, an organization comprised of black professionals throughout the state. And Les, you were around when Mr. Florio was trying it the first time, a little bit more successful now.
Yes, and we're very happy to see that, because Jim stands for a lot of things in the state of New Jersey, and particularly his stand on diversification.
Have you found him to be consistent over the years? I know you have been a loyal supporter.
Yes, I found him to be very consistent throughout 1981 and then even in today. I think by the fact that he lost by such a small percentage in his first run shows that he has the support from the citizens of this state And I think that now that he's in, that he's going to make a very good governor.
Everybody is caught up in the enthusiasm today, myself included. I feel like a 12-year-old watching this parade going by. Yet we still have problems. The more I'm listening to the other people who are speaking on our coverage, we're talking about the auto insurance issue. We're talking about other issues. We do have racial tension throughout the state. That there have been a number of times that we've reflected on it. Most recently on Martin Luther King's birthday.
Oh, yes.
Is this something that can be resolved within a governor's?
I believe it can. Yes, I believe it can. The chief executive really sets the tone for the attitudes and the interaction of people in the state. And I think that Jim Florio's perspective, the diversification that you've seen this morning, and actually throughout his entire campaign, says that there's going to be a lot of inclusion of blacks and other minorities in the state of New Jersey, so that his administration is diversified and caring and showing that opportunity that he says he's going to give us.
But he's following in the footsteps of probably the most popular governor in New Jersey's history.
Yes, he is, and I think he'll succeed those. I believe he'll build on those things that Tom Kean brought to the state of New Jersey with his politics of inclusion.
What would be specifically in the inclusion issue that you think that he could do to better the state of New Jersey?
Well, I believe that he will probably get involved more so with, as he said, he's a listening governor, and he's going to be involved in more ears out there for people that are concerned about issues in this community, and touching base with a more diverse group to address those issues.
Okay, and as we stand here right now, he's behind us enjoying every step of this parade, and I think you and I should do the same. We will take this time to throw it back to Sandy King. Sandy?
Thanks a lot, Scott. We're looking now at the Brick Township High School Marching Dragon Band. Now, they won first place last year in New York St. Patrick's Day Parade. They appropriately have on their green, and let's see what they're doing. By the way, with our Senator Frank Lautenberg, one of the things that's so interesting about this parade is not only the different names, the different parts of the state, but the different styles. I mean, we see the diversity of this state when we see how these states
urban
march,
to suburban.
Exactly. Rural.
Yeah. Some are have the beautiful uniforms and beautiful equipment, and others just have sheer talent.
That's right. That's right.
It's wonderful. There's nothing like a parade to get people engaged with one another, whether it's a 4th of July parade or as I wonder, Sandy, whether we're going to have parades from now on when we have gubernatorial.
What do you think?
Well, I think a lot depends on the weather.
And a lucky day this is.
Oh, and how. It's hard to believe it's January.
I know. I've been wondering whether this weather would be as this, or whether, in fact, it was going to snow or rain, whether we'd all be miserable out here today or we'd be happy. In fact, the weather could not have treated us nicer. As you see there, the Ukrainian Americans of New Jersey, another of New Jersey's ethnic groups, and some kids in some wonderful national costume.
Yeah, it's nice to see. As we were talking about the parades, I was reminded of how cold it was last St. Patrick's Day parades. How beautiful is that? And you see the nicest thing about our country is people can be proud of their heritage, proud of the ancestral roots, be good Americans and be good New Jersey citizens. That's what makes our society so rich.
You know, we've talked about what you expect Jim Florio to do right, but he's going to have some big problems. Like what?
Enormous. Well, I think the budgetary problem is going to be one that he's going to have to fight very hard, because
we've got the New Jersey Education Association
for education in particular.
Speaking of such problems.
Absolutely. He talked about, I thought it was very interesting, about 2 New Jerseys, one urban, one suburb, one wealthy, one poor, and that's a noble. Here's the German group. It's excellent to try to bring them together. He does have a huge task on his hand. He admitted that in his remarks. and we all have to jump in and help. I'm going to do whatever I can from the federal government side. That's not easy because we're going to have enormous budget shortfalls there as well. He's got a tough job. There are a lot of people who would love the honor, but who not sure they would like the job when it finally comes to putting it together.
Before the NJA gets too far away, how do you call it? What's going to happen? Tom Kean said in his final State of the State, it is the elected officials of New Jersey who are going to have to act. Bye.
That's right. His timing couldn't have been more perfect. The problems are so obvious when you see communities one next to the other, some spending almost twice as much on student education as does another. That inequity has to be addressed. I don't want to try to lay out a formula today to address it, but it's obvious that we cannot have a segment of our society falling through the cracks when jobs are there for people with skills and education, and we can't find we can't make the match between the worker and the job.
To bring it back a little later, here we've got one of the more colorful groups in the parade. This is a group that does traditional Korean farmer music.
They're wonderful.
And we see them in some amazingly colorful local costumes.
Our little New Jersey is like a country.
Indeed. I think Scott Moniak's got a great view of them now. Scott, are you down there?
We are right here, Sandy. I think every ethnic persuasion is being represented in this parade. This is a Korean-American organization now displaying their colorful wardrobes and their unique sounds and styles of music. I won't even try to get these people to talk to us, although I think we do have a private performance right now all to ourselves.
Thank you.
We can't tell exactly
so much
what this is representative of, but you can certainly tell that they are pleased to be a part of the parade and knowing that they are the inauguration parade for Governor Florio. I wonder if we could try to talk to them for just 1 second. Oh, they're finishing up. Hold on 1 second. Let them take their bow. Hi, how does it feel to be in this parade?
I'm very great. I'm very great.
Did it take a long time to practice and prepare for this?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about the music. What was the music that you were performing?
I don't know.
What was the music that you were performing just now?
Oh, it's we playing at when the harvest time.
At harvest?
Yeah, on harvest we wish for all the love.
We have a celebration for the harvest? Okay, as they're celebrating the harvest, we are celebrating the inauguration of Jim Florio as governor of the proud state of New Jersey. And we'll step back just a little bit more and get out of their way before we are trampled here on State Street. And I will throw it back to Sandy King. Sandy?
Okay, Scott. Yes, we almost saw you run over in the dance there. Glad that you're okay. They're a tremendous group to watch, and now watching with me is your Congressman Donald Payne. Were you surprised when this tradition had been a tradition until the early 30s was revived of having the parade out here?
I didn't quite hear that.
This parade, you know, had been abandoned in the early 30s, and Jim Florio decided to revive it, to put this kind of thing back on the first day of a new governor's term. What do you think?
Oh, I think that it shows what type of administration Jim Florio will have. We're looking at Korean-American people from New Jersey. What he's doing is showing the diversity of the ethnicity of this state. And I think that's going to be the hallmark. As he said, he wants to be known as the person that made opportunity available in one New Jersey. And so this is just, I think, a highlight of things to come. Let me get the rhythm.
This group is just amazing. Let me tell you about some of the instruments they're using. They've got a large brass drum called the zing. They've got a smaller drum called the gangari. And then they've got the old bugle, and they've got a bamboo flute, and they can move, and their costumes are fantastic. I think that this is one of the highlights of this parade.
Very colorful. It is beautiful to sit up here and watch that group, and they look so proud. Look at the smiles on their face, the exuberance, being proud of being from New Jersey.
Florio doesn't look like he's tired of it yet.
That's for sure. I think Jim is just basking in it. He just loves it.
And of course, it's not over for him. Once this passes, then there's this evening to go through. Are you going to the ball?
Oh, yes. I'm going to look forward to that. I think that Jim Florio, by being the first Italian-American to become the governor of New Jersey, I think is significant.
Let me just interrupt you for 1 minute, Congressman, because this next band is a really important group. They're called the Pioneers Marching Band of the Burlington County Special Services School District. And these are exceptional and disabled children. And they were conceived and created back in 1976, and from the start of this, the idea was to function not only as a superior school band, but also to meet the physical and emotional and therapeutic needs of its very special kids. This is a big day for them. I saw them as they came in on the bus, and they were so excited, and you can see them now. Here they are in front of the governor, some of them saluting.
Oh yeah, you can see the expressions on their face. They're proud. You know, and once again, this opening up of our society, the having everyone participate, and if you have a disability, there should not be exclusive. As a matter of fact, we have a bill pending in Congress now, the ADA bill, the Act for Disabled Americans, that will be a civil rights act for people so that they can march in parades if they want to, without specifically being invited. So this is a great day. New Jersey is ahead of the rest of the
Well, you know, we talk about the gains that have been made for racial groups, for ethnic groups, for women over the last 20 years, but there hasn't been any gain more significant, I think, than what there's been for people who were traditionally called handicapped, who we now call challenged, who are really shut out of the society relatively recently, who in many ways still are.
Right.
But at least there is an official sanctioning of bringing them in, and I think that's what having this group here is all about. By the way, I want you to know that these kids didn't just come here to Trenton. They have been all over this country. They are appreciated in a way that I don't think they would have been the last time there was an inaugural parade here in Trenton.
That's right.
And that's good news.
Well, this is fantastic, and I salute the governor for this.
Let me ask you about his speech while we're still watching these pioneers, and they are that. They are indeed that. What did you hear today? What did you hear today that surprised you, scared you, pleased you?
Well, I heard something that pleased me. One, I wasn't surprised because I've known Jim Florio for 20 years. I wasn't scared, but I was pleased. I was pleased to hear him say that he wants New Jersey to be a state of opportunity. He said that we cannot have two New Jerseys, one that's flourishing and one that's in decline. That, to me, I think, really was the key to what he said today.
Although, you know, Donald, that's said a lot by politicians these days, and yet it doesn't always mean that action follows. By the way, we've got the Portuguese-American Congress coming through now. We know them well from Newark, from the Iron Man.
And we're so proud of the large Portuguese-American community that we have. Mr. Fontoro, who is a former Newark police officer.
Now our Essex County Undersheriff.
That's right. And the heritage of Portuguese Americans have done so much to help Newark in its ethnicity and its growth and development. So I'm very pleased to have one of the largest Portuguese American communities of any congressional member in the United States.
The largest, I think.
One of the, they're in New England, they're supposed to be perhaps a larger community, but we certainly are ranking up second or third in the country.
And one of the big differences, I think, between this community of Portuguese Americans that we have in the Ironbound section of Newark and other ethnic communities in the state, this is a new community. This is a community that has basically formed in the last 20 years.
That's right. Well, you know...
these are first-generation Americans.
Right. You see, it was difficult under the former totalitarian-type government in Spain and Portugal for people to immigrate out. And when there was a change in the government, when Portugal decided to give up its African colonies, Angola and Mozambique and Guinea-Bissau, they started to relax their internal government. And it gave people more freedom, and they loosened the ability for people to emigrate out. And so we're pleased that we have these immigrants coming into our country, coming into our state, coming into our congressional district to really help the growth and development. They're very pleasant people, hard-working people, and they fit in well with the general Newark community.
You know, because of this community in Newark, I understand from people who've been to Portugal that if you go to Portugal and you say you're from Newark, you are immediately seen as having some sort of kinship. It's probably one of the few places in the world that's going to respond to our home quite that way.
That's right. There's no question about it. We have trips from Newark to Portugal several times a week, and so we're very pleased about this.
We know Jim Florio talked about law enforcement today, about security. We see the sheriff's cars going through from Union and Sussex and Essex, and I think Scott Moniak's got another group in his sights. What's happening down there, Scott?
Well, Sandy, we've been talking about the enthusiasm from the thousands and thousands of people who are jammed on State Street right now, but a man next to me might not seem to be as enthusiastic as some of these others, yet he is going to be sworn into office at 3 o'clock today as the new Attorney General for the state of New Jersey. Bob Del Tufo, thank you for being with us. You must feel wonderful right now.
Oh, I do. I'm late to enthusiasm for the parade because I was in the Senate chamber while Joan Haberly and I were being confirmed. She is Secretary of State and myself as Attorney General. It's a very wonderful, joyous day for the governor and certainly for me, and I think for the state of New Jersey.
I understand this parade was actually just for you, but as long as the governor was here too, he got to share it with you?
I'm glad that he has an opportunity to join in, yeah.
Have you ever started a job where your first day in office, you had this kind of a celebration?
Well, the last 3 jobs were like this. No, I'm only kidding. This is something unique, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will rejoin the parade coverage.
We've just seen a group called the Middle Township High School Panther Marching Band, one of the most impressive groups in this parade. But equally interesting, coming just behind them, was a group from Romania, and certainly, given the events that have happened in Romania in recent weeks, Congressman Payne, it must be a wonderful thing for them to be able to be out here marching with good feeling and knowing that they can feel good not only about what's happening here, but what's happening at their home.
Oh, there's no question about it. There's been more progress during this past year, and being a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, when we go back into session next week, we will be talking about Romania and Czechoslovakia and Hungary and Poland.
And China, and as we see here, we've got the Federation of Chinese Associations in New Jersey, and perhaps not quite so much to celebrate there just yet.
Well, one of the first bills that we will address when we return to Congress will deal with China. And so it's very appropriate that they are here to show the great diversity of this state.
Just behind our dragon there, you see one of the last groups in this parade. They are the Blue Jackets Guard USA. Now this is a non-profit, non-sectarian naval youth group. Boys and girls aged 9 to 18. They are based in Brooklyn, and they were asked to be here today because, in fact, Jim Florio is from Brooklyn. And this was a chance to give a little nod to his roots, as well as to his present.
Well, I think it's really important when people remember where they came from. And for Jim to have people from his former residence in Brooklyn to be here, once again, it shows the thoughtfulness.
This is the last group. Let's give a listen. from Brooklyn, Jim Florio's original home, as he told us many times during the campaign.
And interestingly enough, his father worked in the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Particularly appropriate to have this group of kids with their naval theme. All of this, of course, part of New Jersey Network's live coverage of this parade. This first time ever event for most of us in our lifetimes.
You know, it's interesting that yesterday morning it was snowing and today the sun is shining bright. I think that that's an omen to the way that the Florio administration will proceed during the next 4 years.
Again, a happy, pleased Jim Florio and Lucinda Florio. They have not sat down, by the way, Congressman. They have been on their feet and clearly have no other wish to do anything but that.
He has so much energy and so much enthusiasm. And as I mentioned, the struggle of going 3 times before he could win it, I keep paralleling that with me. It was my 3rd time, too. Almost over the same number of 15, 18 years that we've been talking about it. And I could really relate to him when he says it's really a very sweet feeling to finally make it. That's why I'm so convinced that he's going to make a real difference in this state.
And of course, we should again note that while he will be moving in here at the State House, it means he's moving out of Washington and the Congress with you. And he will be missed there, I think, for the kind of work that he's done, particularly on the environment.
No question about it. He served on a very powerful Energy and Commerce Committee, and much of the Superfund and clean water, we can thank Jim Florio for that, the whole country. So he will be missed, but there will be a new breed coming in to start again to build up the kind of reputation that Rodinos, Florios, and Jim Howards had.
Jim Florio blowing kisses to the crowd. He is really happy. I wonder how much energy he'll have by the time he's danced a while tonight. But right now, this is a happy couple.
Absolutely.
And of course, I think their own pleasure in each other, their own joy has really shown throughout this campaign, and it certainly has been an asset to him throughout.
Oh, it showed a different Jim Florio, compassionate, caring. He was always considered too serious and tough. He's serious, but this shows that he is just as human as anyone else. And when he talks about little Matthew, he just beams his grandchildren. And,
he had Matthew and Chelsea with him today.
That's right. When he started, I think
it
was just Matthew, but now it's Matthew and Chelsea.
Right,
so the state is growing.
We see that this parade, however, has just about finished. Jim Florio saying some goodbyes for the moment, but as we've noted, these inaugural events will go on. Today is a day for celebration for Jim Florio, for his supporters, for his family. A day of new beginnings for the state of New Jersey. He will have 4 years to prove what he can or can't do, what he can or can't deliver. We heard a lot of promises in the speech today. There was a lot of promise, I think, in this parade. And certainly he could not have had better weather today, a better send-off for the 4 years that are awaiting him.
Well, I think that is certainly another key to what kind of administration he will have. He said on Monday he wants the legislature to convene so he can unveil the new insurance plan. That's action, not a study, not a 6-month wait.
It's what was promised during the campaign, and it is an attempt, I think, to deliver.
It's deeds, not words. And that's why I'm so encouraged by Jim.
Okay, let's go to
It's a nice
Scott
feeling,
Moniak,
and it's a great parade. Great day for the parade. The parade was New Jersey. You saw the full diversity of our state. It's going to be a good stage.
Just a few steps to be able to get inside, but it took a long time to get here. Does that make it all the more special?
It did. It makes it a special day.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Jim Florio now making his way into the State House. This is the first time that he will have made this walk as governor. And he certainly has waited a long time, and it must be a very sweet feeling for him. We saw him walk out of this building a couple of hours ago on his way to his inaugural address. He was still the governor-elect. He is now the governor. And there is no one who is more aware of that at this moment than Jim Florio.
That's for sure.
He'll be spending a lot of time here. It will be his chance to show what he started promising 12 years ago that he could do.
Absolutely. It's the last decade of the 20th century, and that's really historic.
This has been New Jersey Network's live coverage of this event, the first in my lifetime, the first for most New Jerseyans. It's been a great day. We've had a great seat, and now we're going to send it back to the studio in Kent.
All right, Sandy, our thanks to you and to Scott Moniak for all your thoughtful insight and color coverage along the parade route today on Inauguration Day 1990. I'm here with Michael Aaron in our studio, and it certainly has been a very festive day in New Jersey, Michael.
Ken, as a political event, I thought that parade was very refreshing. As Governor Florio said, it was an affirmation of New Jersey's diversity, and I liked watching Florio's face throughout the parade. He seemed to be gathering strength and nourishment from that parade for the hard days ahead.
Certainly a very happy man and couple with his wife today, Michael. Thank you.